So my grandpa told me the story. He's not a man to make stuff up or exaggerate anything. He's just not like that. He's from Mexico, and as you may have heard, Mexico has some of the craziest stories. This happened when he was in his 20s. He said he was tending to the cattle in the fields by some hills with his brother. Other guys were around the area too, doing the same thing. They would all eat their lunch under the shade. One of the guys had a little goat that would roam away, so he had to go get it before it went too far. He went up to a small hill, and there was a small cave. The goat went in there, and the guy followed, but he never came back. My grandpa and the other men went to look for him. They called the police, but the guy completely disappeared. There wasn't a hole, there wasn't a lake or anything, so it made no sense. A year later, my grandpa again was tending to the fields when two other guys start yelling that they found the guy. Everyone ran, and there the guy was. The same exact clothes, same everything, and the same exact baby goat that had not grown at all. He said he went into the small cave and had a conversation with a man, and that the man knew his entire life story. The town is small, but no one knew who he was talking about. But he said that he was just in the cave for an hour. No one could believe it. Literally a whole year had passed, but the guy just thought it was an hour. I didn't believe my grandpa at first, but when I went to Mexico, I asked my aunts and cousins, and they said it was true. They even showed me the small hill and cave, but no one dares to go in. The man has since died, but apparently he was traumatized for the rest of his life. This just happened in Argentina, Entre Rios, Hernandarias. A 13-year-old boy claims he saw a light that made him lose consciousness and suddenly appeared on the other side of Hernandarias. Several witnesses corroborate the story that happened at 22:30. Diego Wasinger, the chief police officer, said the boy was in a family reunion when he left to a relative's house 50 meters away from there. A relative remembered the door was malfunctioning and went to help the boy. The boy stood a few meters behind him and after a few seconds vanished. As they couldn't find him inside the house, they all went out looking for him. 10 minutes later, the boy turned on his cell phone, answered a call, and told his family he was at a bus stop outside of town. The family found him in a state of shock. The boy told the family that while his relative was closing the door, a sudden light appeared. He lost consciousness, and then he appeared at the bus stop. All witness accounts seemed to match the description of what happened that day. So this week I was coming back from California and had to go through the Denver airport, which is known for its countless conspiracies and supposed agendas. I ended up having to check my luggage because they had no room left on the plane for something of that size, meaning I'd have to go a slightly different way to hit baggage claim afterward. So when I stepped off the plane, I made my way through the normal crowd of people boarding the plane next and followed the signs for baggage claim, and that's when it got weird. The first thing that I noticed was how oddly quiet the airport was, and also that I was in an area of it that I've never seen before. It was newly refurbished and very dimly lit, with metal plating along the walls and a couple of closed outlets and restaurants that shouldn't have been closed at 9 p.m. I looked around to see that I was the only person in the area, and there was no music playing, and the walkway led to a single metal door marked Exit. I looked around like an idiot for a few minutes, not wanting to go through the door and trigger an alarm, but it turned out to be my only way. It was marked the Terminal D on the ceiling, and I know for sure that the plane landed at Terminal C, which is the farthest one at the airport, as no Terminal D exists. I ended up going through the door, which led to, strangely enough, right next to Gate 40 of Terminal C, which the plane had parked at. I was genuinely freaked out and asked a TSA lady if she knew where the door went, and she said, "Janitor's closet." Then I asked her about Terminal D, and she looked at me like I was on drugs. So apparently I ended up in a part of the airport that doesn't exist. Maybe a Terminal D is built in the future. Either way, it was very confusing. This happened about 3 months ago. I lost my job at a hotel about a month before I started applying to different hotels to see if they would hire me. I wasn't having much luck on any callbacks, so I kind of stopped applying just to take a break. So it was a Thursday, and I was driving with my little sister because we were shopping for birthday gifts for my mother. She asked me if we can go to Bath & Body Works, and I said no, let's go Wednesday because I'll have some extra money for me to buy something. She then says, "Don't you have a job interview on Wednesday?" I said no, I didn't get any callbacks. She then says, "I swear you told me you got a job interview on Wednesday at 12 at some hotel." Again, I said no, I never said any of that. Monday morning, I wake up, and I have a voicemail from a number I don't recognize. So I listen, and the woman says, "Hi, my name is Jan from the Lannister Hotel. We're calling because we'd like to schedule an interview with you, so please give me a call back at this number." So I called them back, and the only time they had available was on Wednesday at 12. It was Monday, so I completely forgot about my sister and I's conversation. I was just excited I got the interview. So 2 nights ago, I had a dream that I had a brother named Eric, and in the dream, we were doing something with technology. I remember about 95% of the dream, so here's what happened. Basically, Eric was dying, and I had to upload his consciousness to a supercomputer floating machine thing, so a simulation of his memories could be created so he could continue living through the machine. At the end of the dream, the machine containing most of his mind turned itself on me and gave me the choice to cut the plug on human Eric, or the machine version of him would override itself and destroy the memories and the code to hold them, and the body would die eventually as well. I remember having to cut some bio cable, and my brother died, and the machine glitched, and I woke up. I called my parents, very intrigued by the dream, and they go to inform me that apparently I had a brother. He had died within a month or so of birth because of the umbilical cord stopping giving him food and oxygen. Also, my parents were planning on naming him Eric. So what the hell? This is also the first I had heard of having a potential brother. So I don't believe in any particular god or deity, but I do believe that there is something out there that we don't understand, and that whatever it is tests us in ways we may not understand either. I've lived in New York City for about 6 years now, and every couple of years this strange thing happens to me, and it just happened for the 3rd time yesterday, which led me to believe it's more than just a coincidence. So what happens is I'll usually be traveling somewhere, and someone will run up to me in a panic and ask if I can help them get somewhere by either buying them a train or bus ticket. They'll go into their story about what's going on and every time provide me proof that they're not lying. They're never crazy homeless people either. Always really polite and articulate, but seem like they're very down on their luck. Here are the 3 scenarios. Number 1. Man runs up to me and asks if I can help him buy a train ticket to see his ill son in New Jersey. He showed me some medical bills and told me about his son when I agreed to help him. This was in Penn Station, so we went and bought his ticket, which came out to $33, and asked if he could have some money to buy a bottle of water to hold him over on the train. The train ticket plus the bottle of water was $34. Number 2. Man runs up to me in a panic telling me that he's a chef and needs to get to Atlantic City for a shot at this job he's been working toward. He shows me his papers for the job and emails on a shitty old smartphone about this job, and again seems like a guy who's scraping by and down on his luck. I agree to help him get to his destination, and it again comes out to $34. Number 3. This happened yesterday. I'm walking to the subway near my place, and I get a couple of blocks down the street and am stopped by a sobbing woman. She asks me if I know any churches she can go to for help, and say I don't. She then proceeds to tell me that her son, who lives in Philadelphia, got shot and needs to go see him as soon as possible in the hospital. She told me she needed $30 for the bus. When I checked my pocket, I had exactly $34. It would be enough for her to catch the subway, buy a bus ticket, and a bottle of water. I took it as a sign that I should help this woman in her time of need. I don't know if this stuff is coincidence or I'm getting scammed, but in my gut these people seemed very genuine, and I know if I was in their position, I would hope someone could spare $34 for me. Nearly 17 years ago, I said hello to a cat that would end up being my best friend, my shoulder to cry on, my cuddly pal who slept on my head every single night. She was my entire world. Even when I first picked her up as an 8-year-old, I cried thinking of the day that she would leave me. I remember sitting in my room, sobbing, wondering how long my cat would stay with me. It was during that moment that I clearly envisioned the number 27. Ever since that day, I tried to understand what it meant. I had thought until recently that it meant she would live until I was 27. But I was wrong. She started to get very sick in the past few months, and on Saturday of this Memorial Day weekend, she couldn't get up anymore. I knew it was over. I scooped her up in my arms and drove her to an emergency 24-hour vet. They were the only place in the area that was open at that time, and I couldn't watch her suffering anymore. It was clear her mind wanted to go on, but her body had already begun the process of shutting down. Just before 11 p.m. on Saturday, the vet injected her while I held her in my arms and said goodbye. I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life, but as I walked out to my car, I realized what the date was, and I felt a little sick. May 27th, 2017. Rest in peace, Athena. I had a very confusing situation with the girl. We met on Tinder, clicked extremely well, and both caught feelings for each other. I wanted a relationship, but she isn't ready for one. We tried to make it work. Wasn't really happening. I was getting stressed and getting lots of anxiety, so we were going to take an indefinite break. We went a week without talking, and I had a moment of weakness and texted her saying that the situation sucked. She replied saying she agreed, but still thought it was for the best. I was waiting for the bus, reading her reply and mulling everything over. I could feel the anxiety and the heartache building up, a constriction in my chest. All of a sudden, everything goes black. I see a hand reaching out towards me, and I hear a voice. The voice says, "You can disconnect." The hand reaches into my chest, above my heart, and I feel a pop, a burst. The hand pulls out what I can only describe as a ball of white glowing energy, constantly moving. I snap back into reality, and the bus pulls up, and I'm questioning what the hell just happened, if I just had a psychotic break or something. I get on the bus and look at the text again, then all of a sudden realize there's no more anxiety, no heartache. It's gone, all of it. I'm suddenly okay with not being exclusive with her. I'm okay with just spending time with her in the moment, not needing a relationship. I don't mind her seeing other people, and I want to see other people as well, which wasn't the case before. But it doesn't stop there. I was getting anxiety about my job and immediately thought back to the hand and said to myself, "You can disconnect." And the anxiety is gone. This is going to sound really weird, but when I was 15, I was driving around in the countryside with a bunch of friends. We wind up pretty far away from the city. There's no houses, no normal roads, just a bunch of fields and some sheep. Anyways, in the distance, a very quiet, muffled Mambo No. 5 starts playing. We're laughing and trying to figure out where the hell it's coming from, since it's certainly not coming from our radio. The song's volume starts to kind of increase and gets super freaking loud. Halfway through the song, I'm clutching at my ears, fearing I'm about to go deaf, and my friend Kathy's screaming at us to shut it off because she thought we were messing with her. All of a sudden, it cuts out, and it's just the silence of the countryside again. It was so loud my ears were ringing for a couple of days. This is the only weird thing that's ever happened to me that I can recall I haven't found a logical explanation for. Last Sunday, June the 4th, I woke up and looked at my phone and saw it was 7:36. I started to panic because I was so sure I was late for work. I got dressed and was on my way when I drove by my parents' house and saw their car still in the driveway. So I called them and asked why they weren't also going to work. My mom seemed confused and told me it was Sunday. I knew that had to be wrong, and yesterday was Sunday, right? So I get to work and the gates are locked and nobody is there. Confused, I turned around and went home to get ready for church. Here's where it gets weird. After church, I was talking to some of the guys who go there, and I told them about that morning. They kind of look at me funny and tell me they did the same thing to various degrees. Some got to work while others were stopped by neighbors and wives, but all of us thought it was Monday and we were late for work. This had happened to every guy who had a job at that church, about 14 in total. 8 years ago, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment by myself with 2 cats. I had a girlfriend, who I will name Elsa for this story, who lived 45 minutes away on her college campus. Most weekends, she would drive into town and stay at my place until she had class again on Monday. We did regular things as we didn't get to see much of each other. We liked to spend time alone together, watching movies, playing games, or the like. Please keep in mind that neither of us were drug or alcohol users, as I have a good job and I can't risk losing, and she just simply never cared for intoxicants, nor were either of us on any medication. So here's the scene. It's Saturday night, 11 p.m. Elsa and I are sitting on the couch watching a movie, I can't remember which. We are dressed, sober, and alert as we slept in that morning and had plenty of sleep. We are chatting, laughing, talking. The TV is illuminating our immediate area, and I kept the light on in the kitchen to provide some ambient light for the living room as well. My cats are asleep in their favorite chair. All is well. Everybody is safe and comfortable. Suddenly, without any kind of warning or inkling, the jump, as I have come to call it, happened. You know when you're watching dialogue in a movie and they're using 2 cameras to film? When they switch from camera to capture the one speaking, it is seamless, with no clipping, interruption, fading, or transition effects? It was that sudden. We were having a good time together in the living room when in an instant, I found myself sitting on the foot of my bed, clothes removed, in the dark. For about 1/2 of a second, a million thoughts entered my mind. Had something fallen off the wall and hit my head? Did I have a seizure? Was I dreaming the whole time? Where is Elsa? Then the scary part. I turn to my right, and Elsa is also sitting on the foot of the bed next to me, clothes removed. Her eyes are the size of golf balls, and she's trembling. I realize I am as well. I try to speak and ask her if something happened, but I'm so frightened, I only stutter. After looking around the room and realizing we are alive, she managed to ask me what had happened. I didn't want to answer in case it was just me, and I didn't want to come off as nuts. I just looked at her. After a pause, she started asking me again if I had turned off the lights, removed our clothes, or if I knew what was going on. I didn't. Neither of us had experienced grogginess or confusion before the event. Furthermore, we didn't experience any sensations other than fear and confusion after it. No aches or pains, no bumps, bruises, or cuts. I reached for my phone to call my mom and see if a doctor would be appropriate. I noticed that it's not 11 p.m. anymore. Now it's 3 a.m. In that sudden instant, the instantaneous change of scene, 4 hours had passed. Everything in the house had been turned off, and we had been stripped. We went to the ER as my mom's fear was a gas leak. No signs of toxins or injury were found on either of us. Elsa made an appointment for a CAT scan, which also came back negative as expected. I explored possibilities like a gas leak, poisoned consumer goods like our soda or fast food, neurological malfunctions, and more. But the one thing that always bothered me was the fact that Elsa and I lost and acquired the same time at the exact same instance, 4 hours apart. Neither of us witnessed anything that the other didn't, and there were no lingering effects. For weeks I kept bringing it up with her, just hoping one of us would remember something. I browsed forums from all types of sites searching for answers. Every time I brought it up, Elsa would get scared at the memory and beg me to just let it go. I couldn't. I'm no writer, so I'm sure I left some things out that would have been helpful in understanding the magnitude and surrealism of this event and how it affected Elsa and I. Please, if you've heard this much and you have a question, clarification, or even a theory, I've been waiting 8 years to hear it. Somebody, tell me what happened to me.